government which did something which the whole world believed to be impossible. But the current threat is every bit as serious. The government has the will, it has a capability to face this threat. We need a government with a clear policy and a clear direction. But what Sirisena is promising is a hodgepodge. Economic development must be reflected in the lives of people. Now that has definitely happened. If the government has delivered and if there is a level of satisfaction among people, then they won't continue it. I mean, if people have confidence, that is what matters. Are you telling the people that they cannot vote for a family? That if you belong to a family, is that a disqualification? What is important in this election are the issues. We have to lay the issues before the people. With so much happening in the world, chaos in so many countries, people dying by the hundred, the focus is on Sri Lanka. So where is the balance? It is a political matter, not a matter of equity or justice. There is no doubt that the need of the hour is strong and effective government. It is abundantly clear that terrorism could never have been eradicated from this country in the absence of a strong executive. During the war, the nature of the threat and the gravity of the threat was very obvious to everyone. The general atmosphere of intimidation which prevailed in the country. Today, the threat is equally serious, but not so obvious. The events that are now taking place indicate the nature of action contemplated against this country at the international level. A few weeks ago, there was a man called Krishna Rasa, who was found in the Vanni area with blank sheets of paper in his possession but with signatures. When there was a comprehensive police investigation that was conducted, Krishna Rasa was questioned by the police. He was also found in possession of a diary which contained 400 items. Many of these were national identity card numbers of people who had been killed in the war. Under interrogation, he said that he had been given the necessary directions, the money, the wherewithal by a man called Sun Master. And even while Krishna Rasa was being questioned by the police, Sun Master spoke to him twice on the phone. We have evidence that there were as many as 67 telephone conversations between Krishna Rasa and Sun Master within a space of 60 days, within 2 months. So that is more than one telephone call a day. There is photographic evidence which is clearly indicative of the connection of Sun Master with prominent personalities in the Tamil National Alliance. There is clear photographic evidence. Now, Krishna Rasa was arrested, but Sun Master evaded arrest by leaving the country unlawfully. Now, it is clear from the answers given in the police questioning that this was evidence being fabricated to be sent to the Human Rights Council for the investigation that was being conducted against this country. The people who signed these blank sheets of paper were told that these were application forms for compensation from the United Nations system. That is why they signed. They thought these were application forms for money. Now, we understand that the Attorney General is contemplating criminal proceedings against people involved for a variety of extremely serious offences. Then at the same time, a very strange development took place in Geneva. That is, there was a statement by the spokesperson for the Office of the Commissioner for Human Rights, that the deadline that they had imposed, that is 30th of October, there was a deadline that the investigating panel had imposed. All evidence had to be received before then, because they had explained that they required a minimum of 2 months to draft their report. Then this lady called Anandi that's a TNA member of the Northern Provincial Council, made a request in writing that the deadline be extended because they were preparing for some evidence. It was in that situation that there was this very strange statement, right, by the spokesperson for the Office of the Commissioner for Human Rights, that the deadline was not being officially extended. However, he said that they were aware that some evidence will take longer to arrive and will not be received before the expiry of the deadline. He therefore said that evidence that is received after the expiry of the deadline will not necessarily be rejected. There is clearly a connection between the fraudulent evidence that was being concocted here and leaving the door open in this highly unprincipled way for the reception of that evidence. You can't have an official channel for communicating with the investigating panel and an unofficial channel, right? You can't have the deadline applicable to some people but not to other people. We have asked how these bizarre things happen, and we have had no answer whatsoever. That statement by the spokesperson is the strangest statement that I have ever read from any UN body. That is the situation we are in. And we have brought this to the attention of other members of the Human Rights Council. This is an investigation that has potentially very serious consequences for the political leadership of this country and the military leadership. We had a statement by Surendran of the Global Tamil Forum that their sole objective is to have the president defeated at the presidential election and to haul him up before a war crimes tribunal. Now, these threats are not so obvious to the public as the threat that the country faced during the time of the war. But the current threat is every bit as serious. Now, government has the will, it has the capability to face this threat. I mean, after all, a government which did something which the whole world believed to be impossible. So for a government like that, contending with the present threat is not a problem. But the fundamental need is for a strong, effective government. Now it is that is in jeopardy because of the totally confused thinking and proposals which are being presented on behalf of the joint opposition candidate. The reason I say this is that there is no consistency whatsoever. One person is saying that the executive presidency will be abolished in 24 hours. Maithripala is saying he will run the country from Polonha. First, he said that the president should not retain any portfolio. Now he says he will retain the defense portfolio. Then there is some speculation that General Fonseca has asked for the defense portfolio. Right? There are lots of issues here. Mr. Sirisena says that if he is elected, he will hand over all executive power to Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe as Prime Minister. Is there political or moral legitimacy about that proposition? Executive power to the leader of another party. That is a total distortion of the democratic process. Must seek election himself. You can't do it indirectly through another person. But what they are saying is not possible. No, it is not legally possible because the executive president cannot abolish the presidency. That is not a matter within the power or the purview of the executive president. He can discharge the powers pertaining to the office of president, but he cannot abolish the executive president. He can't abolish the office to which he has been elected. That is a matter for parliament. Our constitution is very explicit on these issues. That is, the executive presidency is dealt with in Article 4B of the Constitution. Article 3 deals with sovereignty. The Supreme Court, in a series of authoritative decisions, has held that Articles 3 and 4 have to be read together, that they are intertwined. Article 83 of the Constitution sets out the provisions which cannot be changed even by a two-thirds majority but require a referendum. Article 83 spells out the provisions that require a referendum as a necessary condition for amendment of those provisions. On this whole issue of handing over power by Sirisena to Wickremesinghe, it can be done. Because the operative provision there is Article 37, Sub-Article 1. That is in a situation where the President is unwell, if he is ill, or if he is leaving the country for some specific reason and for a temporary period, then power can be transferred to the Prime Minister, to face the kinds of threats that I have described to you. Right? We need a government with a clear policy and a clear direction. But what Sirisena is promising is a hodgepodge. He is backed by a loose combination of parties which have one objective and one objective alone. That is to dislodge Mahinda Rajapaksa as president. But what happens thereafter is not a matter which has received any careful consideration. And the parties that are backing him have totally contradictory policies, which even at the basic level cannot be reconciled with one another. In that situation, there is no coherent or consistent policy that could be formulated or implemented at all. The country needs a strong government with clear, coherent, consistent policies. It is that would be rendered impossible by the situation that is offered by Sirisena. UPFA had a very clear sense of direction, and the other parties associated themselves with a common set of policies. That is not the case here at all. Now, even on the executive presidency, how are they going to deal with it? Right? Then what is their stand on the 13th Amendment? Who will be defense minister? How will they deal with the threats now confronting the country? What will be their economic policy? What happens thereafter is a very incidental consideration to which no thought has been given. Now, the country is certainly going to have to pay an exorbitant price for that situation, because what is being eroded is a stable, effective government. In 2005, he promised peace. In 2010, he said he promised economic development. And now in 2014, he is promising a disciplined society. Now today, Sri Lanka is the second fastest growing economy in Asia. It is not statistics, GDP growth and per capita incomes, all those are very important. But the really important thing is the President's conviction that this economic development must be reflected in the lives of people up and down the country, not confined just to Colombo and the environment. That is the equitable distribution of the fruits of economic development. Now that has definitely happened. Today the children who are scoring the highest marks at public examinations do not come from the big schools in Colombo, Kandy or Galle. They come from rural schools. So that is a social revolution in the most important sector, that is education. President Rajapaksa has achieved equality of opportunity across the board. Look at the infrastructure. Apart from the mega projects, which the whole country knows about, apart from the mega projects, the highways and so on, the schools in the rural areas, the clinics, drinking water, pipe-borne water, electricity. It's a different world. Now in a place like Hambantota, where I work regularly, the increase in land values is unbelievable. It's a totally different world there. The way people dress, the way people... Now, what the public needs to do is we have to protect these. We have to protect these hard-won victories. That is why there is no room for complacency. Nobody must believe that all challenges have ceased with the end of the war. The challenges are very much there. And that is why the need for strong, effective government capable of delivery. There has been delivery in the past. Had there been no executive presidency, the war could never have been won. Impossible. There is a lot of envy and jealousy directed against individuals. Right? And a lot of the criticism springs from personal animals. But we are not deterred or discouraged by any of that. And in some cases it is perfectly obvious that the motives are very personal. The situation in the Human Rights Council in Geneva, tomorrow morning we can stop this prayer. It is not impossible at all. You have to give in to things which we believe are not in the national interest.
How can you stop this pressure tomorrow?
By agreeing to what they are demanding. The country is being pursued by only one section of the global community. To talk of world opinion is ridiculous. Where is the world opinion without China, without India, without Russia, without Japan, without the entire Arab world, without Asia? Only one country in Asia out of 13 voted for the US resolution. Without the vast majority of countries in Africa. Where is world opinion? Out of 36 countries which sponsored the resolution against Sri Lanka, 33 were from Europe and North America. Is that the world? So, if we give in to the demands of these people, then the resolutions will stop. But we firmly believe that that is not in the national interest, and therefore the criterion has to be our assessment of what is good for the country. Look at the double standards that are being employed. We are told that we must cooperate with the investigation. Now I have shown you how irregular the investigation is, even with regard to a basic matter such as the deadline. Now the people who are abusing very harsh language against Sri Lanka for not submitting this country to an international investigation, what did they do when some other countries totally refused to have anything to do with an investigation? Was this kind of denunciation ever resorted to in respect of those countries? So where is there cannot be clearer evidence of double standards. And the use of human rights as a political tool. The influence of the diaspora is what is driving this. Let us call a spade, let us be frank. The impetus has to do with the political fortunes of politicians in other countries. How is it that a member of the diaspora is permitted to address a foreign parliament in Tamil? Is that permitted by the standing orders of that parliament? We have in our possession letters written by a foreign leader thanking Tamil groups for the support that the Tamil groups have given at a referendum held in that country. Karatu says, while we are very grateful to you, we are also aware of your concerns about Sri Lanka and you can rely upon our empathy. These have nothing to do with the well-being of Sri Lanka. This has to do with core political interests of politicians in other countries. And Sri Lanka is only the stage on which this drama is being enacted. Many of these countries are dependent on the proponents of the resolution, even for physical security, not to mention economic development. They are dependent. So they are asking us, how can we say no to these people? When they demand that we vote with, how can we say no to them? That will jeopardize the whole of our relations with those countries, and we will have to pay a heavy price in terms of security and even economic development. So this is why we meant that the voting pattern has nothing to do with an assessment of the situation in Sri Lanka. It has to do with bilateral issues involved in the relationship between the country proposing the resolution and the countries whose votes are being canvassed. With so much happening in the world, chaos in so many countries, people dying by the hundred, the focus is on Sri Lanka. So where is the balance in this? That is the reality of the situation. The LLRC made about 280 recommendations. Some, by their very nature, take longer to implement than others. That is, matters which have to do with attitudes, say for example, language issues, land issues and so on. So which country was asked to implement all the reforms that were necessary in 5 years? It is wholly unrealistic. Why is Sri Lanka being singled out for treatment of a very special nature? That is a political matter, not a matter of equity or justice. Litigation to which Sri Lanka was not a party. If Sri Lanka is to intervene, we have to make a special application to the court. If the court accepts our application, then we are submitting this country to the jurisdiction of the European Court, which is something that we have consistently held to be against the interest of Sri Lanka. What is the advantage of doing it? Because this is not a matter that was decided on evidence relating to specific details in Sri Lankan situations. It's not like that. The judgment was based on a technical, procedural issue. That is a legal issue. So we had retained our lawyers in Brussels and we were in touch both with the European Council and with the 28 countries. So that succeeded. Now the European Council has decided to appeal. And we have appreciated that. There was nothing to be gained by Sri Lanka itself becoming a party. In a situation like that, you have to weigh the pros and cons, the benefits and the disadvantages. If there was something we could contribute which nobody else could, then there is some reason to intervene. But when that is not the case, and the decision turns, as the court very clearly explained, the decision turns on procedural, legal, technical grounds. We would have lost far more than we would have gained had we intervened, with the consequence that Sri Lanka is accepting the jurisdiction of the court. That is not the case at all. In our part of the world, in Asia, people don't change governments for the sake of changing governments. Their criterion is something else. If the government has delivered and if there is a level of satisfaction among the people, then they won't continue it. When there is a change, there is some degree of disruption. There may be circumstances in which that is warranted. But our people do not believe in changing governments just simply in order to say, well, there is a certain period beyond which we don't want the government to go. That is not the way our people have looked at it. And that is true of the Asian culture. So they will have their chance on the 8th of January and we will see what their verdict is. We have every confidence what their verdict will be because on the record of the president. No, I don't think so, because I don't think public opinion is going to be determined. What is important in this election are the issues. We have to lay the issues before the people. And we have an intelligent electorate. We also have a very high level of political interest. In many Western countries, less than 50% vote at elections. In our country, it is closer to 80%. Why was the same criticism not made against, say, the Kennedys? When John Kennedy was president, Robert Kennedy was attorney general, Edward Kennedy was there. How many Kennedys? Then it is true of the Bush family. Then it's true of these. What about other countries, Pakistan, India, the Philippines? So if people have confidence, that is what matters. And I think that criticism is very wrong because they have all been elected. Mahinda Rajapaksa was elected by 18 lakhs of votes, the majority. Then Basil Rajapaksa received the highest vote ever in the Gampara district. Nana Rajapaksa, same in the Hambantota district. The Speaker Chamal Rajapaksa was elected with huge majorities from Hambantota. So then are you telling the people that they cannot vote for a family? That is, if you belong to a family, is that a disqualification? Are you precluded from holding office because you belong to a particular family? There's absolutely no substance in that criticism except sheer jealousy. Very relevant to Sri Lanka, no? Regional security now. Take the whole issue of human smuggling, people smuggling. That is destabilizing many of our countries. In terms of law and order, gun running, proliferation of arms, money laundering. Then there are issues relating to piracy. Fortunately, not so serious in the Indian Ocean as in some other waters. I want to stress this point. Had terrorism been flourishing in this country today, it would have destabilized the whole of South Asia. So Mahinda Rajapaksa, by eradicating terrorism from this country, served not only the interests of Sri Lanka, but indeed the cause of stability and tranquility in the entire region.
"50 years of strength, trust and stability, offering high security and the best return for your investments. Licensed by the Monetary Board of Sri Lanka and serving you with 5 decades of trusted excellence. Mercantile Investments and Finance PLC, service that extends beyond. Call 0112 348 348.